My project, Carbon Lens, a program to generate QR codes for carbon footprints, is a program that allows the user to enter the item name and country of origin for a product and either find the carbon footprint value as a number or as a scannable QR code. The purpose of this project is to generate QR codes that can be scanned for a carbon footprint value for an item or show a carbon footprint value as a number value. This way, it can be used by both retailer and customer. I hypothesize that my UI will have the three sections. The first would be the area for the user to put the item name and country inputs. The second would be for the buttons to perform the functions with the inputs, so either use them to find the number value or to generate the QR code. And the third area is for the data to be displayed, either as the number or QR code. The materials I used for this project were a laptop with the latest Python software, the SQLite 3 library for the database, the Python QR code library to generate the QR code, and the Python tkinter library to use the UI software for Python. This is the procedure I followed through my building my program. So my first step before I started with the UI was to initiate a database that held the carbon footprint data, and that data would later be retrieved when the UI had the show data or generate QR button pressed. Then in my first version of the program, I used entry boxes for the user to enter the item name and country of the user's choice. And then in the second version, I switched to a combo box because this way there was no way for the user to make a typo when they were typing, because they don't need to type anymore. They only need to select from a list. Then in the third version, I introduced an error label that would appear when the entries didn't match. And then from versions 4 to 5, I changed that from an error label to an error pop-up window, which would just tell you that the entries don't match and which entries were made. And then in version 6, I created the function that used the entries to generate and show the QR. And I also changed the error message to be more detailed, so it would show two different error messages. I chose this project because I had seen what kind of effect climate change was having on the planet, and I wanted to do my part to help make a difference. In the average household, 10 to 30% of the total carbon footprint is contributed to by food consumption and purchases. Of this, the majority was from meat products. So, by making consumers aware of what sort of impact they are having on the climate, this program can help them become more conscious of the purchases they're making. I did run into some difficulties during the development of my program. For example, I had trouble getting the QR to be displayed when it was generated. So I fixed this by generating a new label when the button was pressed instead of using a pre-existing label and just passing the QR code as an image value. Another difficulty I had was centering the header at the top of my window with the title. And so I found that the header was either not being centered when I positioned it, or it was overlapping with some other elements. So I solved this by generating a new frame to hold the header, and that frame was separate from the frame that held all the other UI elements, and this way it wouldn't overlap or interfere. Despite the problems I faced, I thoroughly enjoyed working on this project. I learned about Python and UI programming with tkinter, how to develop and add values to the database, and how to use Python libraries to make a QR code. Due to COVID, I was unable to go to a proper computer lab to do my project, or to find someone a professional in the field to get help and guidance. So I did the entire project from home. However, I was able to get the help I needed from my mom, who guided me along the way during the project. In conclusion, I proved my hypothesis correct. My UI had 3 elements, the 3 I stated in my hypothesis, and if I continued to develop my program, there would be 2 new features I would want to add. The first one would be the option for users to add their own inputs, so that if they come across a product that doesn't already have data in the database, then if they enter the data for that product, all other users can now access that information. And the second feature I would like to add is compound products, where if they have an item that has multiple ingredients, such as a salad, then the user can enter the name, country of origin, and quantity of each product, and then the program would calculate the total carbon footprint for all of those ingredients. And that's it for my project. Thanks for listening.